Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry you get me 2 weeks in a row, so apologize in advance for that. But so nice of you to join us all this morning. Again, Kalem Mackey, Executive Vice President here at C2P, and I'm delighted to be joined by two internal guests this week. So today's topic obviously is don't waste your money, very important, efficiently following up on leads. And so I'd like to introduce our two guest baristas. First, Andrei Henson, our advisor growth specialist here at C2P. Welcome, Andrei.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
And Desiree Sgro, did I get it?
You got it.
S-G-R-O. I don't know how that makes Sgro, but I'm going to go with it. Our business development associate here at C2P. Just for shortcut purposes, we just call her Des. That makes life a lot easier. Again, welcome, Des. So glad of you to join us.
Thanks. So happy to be here.
So let's jump right in, Andrei, Des. So Andrei, I'm going to start with you. So again, our topic, don't waste your money, efficiently following up on leads. So one way to talk about following up on leads is doing what we call lead nurturing. Could you maybe give us a little bit of a high-level overview of what that means and then what is expected when you do a lead nurturing campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we really focus on at C2P, I know Matt says this all the time, is you need to have sales and marketing directly married as closely as possible. So when we break it down, especially in our industry, lead nurturing means calling or emailing someone after they engage with a piece of your marketing. So that's usually going to be webinar follow-up, live event follow-up, or following up with someone in your email list or an existing lead. So what is expected is to convert them from a lead to a prospect by engaging them in a way that they enter your sales funnel. For us and people with C2P using the bucket plan, the name of the game is booking that right fit call. Anything I missed on that, Des, at a high level?
No, absolutely right. Yeah, we really try to focus on getting people on the phone so we can speak with them.
So again, the right fit call is what it's leading to. Des, can you give us kind of an example of maybe how that works in a real world setting in action?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the things that we're talking about for lead nurturing, there are a little bit different levels. So we're going to talk about like lead nurturing your warm leads, your hot leads, and also nurturing your leads that are actively going through your funnel to become a client. So I think in this situation, these coming from pairing with your marketing, as Andrei said, I would use an example of a webinar or an event that's coming up. So if you have an automated email working with your marketing team with a sign up or registration, sometimes we also include qualifying questions on the registration form. So that also helps identify your leads on who would be qualified. So once you have that in tandem with your emails, there's an opportunity to follow up with the people who have registered for this event. You can identify your hot leads that are in that list and maybe follow up with them one-to-one beforehand. So if you look at your registration list, you could say, hey, these are the 10 that are qualified, and you can send them a personal link and say, hey, I'm really excited. I'd love for you to attend this event. So that's one way to engage with them prior to the call. They could also, before the webinar, schedule a call with you if they had any questions before the event. Now, after the webinar is administered, this is when most of your follow-up will come in and the way that you can nurture these leads that you have captured through registration. You can, if they did attend your event, you can thank them for coming. You can send them, hey, I would love to catch up with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you thought about the event. Again, the call to action is to get them on the phone. If they registered, but they did not attend your event, and it's an opportunity to send them the recording. So that's one form of follow-up. You can also have a second form of follow-up that confirms, hey, did you get the recording? Love to speak with you about it, and get them on the phone again. I would say my cadence for this is a little bit more aggressive because they're actively interested and they want to attend your event or they have registered. I would probably follow up with them 4 or 5 times, like within the month. So even like once a week. So you don't want to be too aggressive on all of your campaigns, but in this case, I would say that this is something that they're very interested in and to try to engage with them after the event. So that would be an example, I think, of a lead nurturing your warmer leads that are interested in you. Andrei, anything you want to add?
No, excellent points. I like to acknowledge the amount of times and the cadence for follow-up. Only other thing I focus on too, especially when I speak with advisors that are trying to go or looking at their marketing or their lead nurture process, a lot of people are focused on the amount of new leads they can get, the amount of new faces, the amount of new names. They want to spend more money so they can get new people in front of them because they think that's going to mean more opportunities. What we've been harping on and what we've been showing is working is to follow up with the people that didn't book a next step. So that's where the nurture part comes in. You don't always need to spend more money on getting new faces in front of you if you can just follow up with the people you have that already showed interest. They already showed interest either in one of your subjects or topics that you feel comfortable on: tax in retirement, income in retirement, Social Security, Medicare. Those are our big three that we know are going to bring people in. Those topics aren't going anywhere. Those are constantly going to need people following up. They're usually going to have questions on it. So there's always opportunities to, again, just follow up with the people you already have in your lead list, because there's still opportunities that can be squeezed from the juice there. So, no, excellent point.
For sure. And I would say even after that 4 or 5 times, if they're not engaging with you, then you can reevaluate and say, okay, they're not really clicking or they're not viewing my emails. And Carrie always talks about like prioritizing your hotter leads than people who are really not engaging. And then that could become a different nurturing funnel of people who are actively engaging and sending them different resources based off of the topic that they attended.
It sounds like obviously follow-up is a key, constant, consistent follow-up. A lot of what you mentioned is around like a webinar. It sounds like a more of an online or not a face-to-face process. Is it any different if you're allowing a lot of advisors, they're actually doing workshops, meeting with prospects and effectively leads and prospects in a face-to-face manner? Is it any different using, like, maybe thinking about Andrei and Des, if you were at a Ed Slot event, is your follow-up any different, or is it the same every single time?
I know that my follow-up changes, especially when we're in person, because we go to a lot of like industry events and stuff, spreading kind of the gospel of C2P and what we do here. But I have kind of 2 strategies that I'm more for my follow-up into, and I call it net versus spear phishing follow-up. And working with a net, that's basically anything that I send an email to. I'm going to use a lot of those after a virtual event or after an initial follow-up after I meet someone in person. The only purpose there, I'm not really trying to get a next step. I'm just trying to remind them who I am, what my name is, what I do, and why they showed interest in the first place. So that's me casting a net. I can send that to anyone that showed up, anyone I spoke to, anyone on the topic, any kind of maybe points I remember of speaking to them. That would be my net. My spear phishing, that's a one-to-one. That's not casting a net. That's me going directly to, hey, here's what we spoke about. Here's what we talked about. We talked about building an estate plan, your fears and kind of goals long-term for building this wealth management around you for long-term for your family. We're going to be holding an event in a few weeks on estate planning. We'd love to have you join us. That would be a spear phishing attempt. That I'm going right after what we talked about, what I know is important, and a next step, again, how they can engage. Because we're not just sending out good ideas. The whole purpose is to get them engaged in speaking with us. And again, this comes back to what we talk about with the JL Smith group. You have to pick up the phone. About 10 to 20% of their right fit calls come from calling leads. And there's a couple benefits for training purposes to get younger staff kind of up to speed on your language, your process, what your value proposition is. Having them follow up with proper scripts or training, it's an easy way to get them on the phone and learning your language. And in that same vein, you can't always get a lot of the information and have those conversations via email. A lot of you that grew up doing a lot of the cold calls or have experience with that, you would not believe the kind of stories or insights people are willing to share if you get them on the phone. There's the surface level stuff, like they have certain questions. What's the difference? Whole, term life, my annuity, things like that you can add value to on a phone call that you really can't via email. And a lot of people aren't willing to reach out and ask those questions and be vulnerable unless they're on the phone with someone. The other one is sometimes it's not always about just getting a no. Sometimes the answer is just not now. So having that conversation, people always won't share that they had a life event or had a change in job or there was a spousal issue or health risks. Like, people will share those things with you if you're taking the time to call and reach out to them. But sending an email, always good for, again, that net phishing, sending out the information, here's how to engage, here's what we do. But building that relationship with people, you're only going to be able to do that, again, to your point, Kalem, in person or having that conversation via phone call. Anything I missed on that, Des? Anything where you differentiate?
No, I do the exact same thing. I definitely can change my communication style versus, like colder or warm leads versus someone that I've actually met in person. So yeah, like we all know referrals is still the number one way of getting new customers and clients. So meeting someone in person is just like totally different than seeing someone's name on an email list or a sign-up sheet. I do rely heavily on scripts, but I do not follow my scripts to a T. They're more like templates. So I have different templates that I use, but I try to personalize them as best I can. We use HubSpot and we can create templates and automate them through email. You can just have a Word document if you want, but I try to use them in different scenarios. So I use a lot of my scripts for like email follow-up, as I mentioned, for the webinars. But for people that I meet in person, it's very personal. Like, how are you? How is your travel? How is your daughter? I know we talked about your daughter getting married. How's the wedding? It's very personal, one-to-one speaking with them, because I did talk to them in person. And as Andrei said, they know who we are already. They've met us. So it's more like getting them to go to the next step as opposed to sending them resources on who we are.
Hammer, I saw you on mute. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, a couple of things I just wanted to add. I believe Colleen's on the call with us as well. And all the stuff that these two are saying is you have to do. But I also want to just lay a couple high level things, because I think the biggest thing is the call to action. There has to be that call to action intent in every type of follow-up you're doing. And more importantly, are you posing the question, is this an opportunity for you? Does this information pertain to you? Because that's the question that you say you can answer in the phone call or the follow-up, right? So that's the sense of urgency. That's when we do the presentations, we layer in every presentation with multiple topics, right? So we're going to hit all these things within a very condensed period of time. So it gives them a bigger overview of topics, a bigger overview of what we can do in the holistic planning. But a lot of what we leave them with is you're sitting in the room today, and the big question is, hey, this is all great information, but the real big question is, does any of this pertain to you? And we can't answer that in this setting. The best way that we can answer that is to have a conversation, because the reality of it is we might not be able to help everybody, and we can't help everybody in the room. So what we want to do on this phone call is really understand what your main objectives are, get a little bit better understanding what your resources are, but ultimately talk about whether or not this information that we're talking about is valuable to you and how it can impact your life, your lifestyle, your retirement. And the best way to do that is to have that one-on-one conversation. And the sense of urgency that we end with a lot of it is the tax planning, right? You have 1 year left. Don't tell them 2 years. We have 1 year. After this year, we have 1 year left before the tax law change. The last thing we want to do is waste this year, right? So by the end of this year, we can make it 2 years if we're able to get together with a little bit of sense of urgency. Now, again, this might not pertain to you, but do you think it's worth finding out about? And I think the biggest thing too and I know these guys have it at C2P, because we're all about accountability. You have to have somebody besides the people calling tracking accountability.
Yep.
When we're tracking these leads and what's happening with these leads, Colleen tracks all the accountability of every one of our advisors. And we have that opportunity tracker. She doesn't just discuss with them, she discusses with me and my sales manager. So when we have their quarterly EDMs, it's okay, why is this not happening? What's going on here? Why are you failing from step 1 to step 2 or step 2 to step 3? What is the things that are going on in this case? Because if you're not holding their feet to the fire, they're going to cherry pick. Every advisor will do that to you. I shouldn't say every. There's a lot of advisors. Now, even yourself, remove the accountability of the follow-up from you. The best thing I ever did years ago is when Gina Pellegrini told me to give up my calendar. Because now I can hold the person accountable. Why aren't these people in my calendar? Why aren't these people being followed up with? So you have to have that dual accountability and follow-up. And I think that's super critical if you're trying to get the most value out of these leads. Because the way these leads pop up from even a year ago is the diligence that Colleen has in the accountability and the tracking. We go back and following up and doing those types of things. So those were just a couple of those high-level things that I just wanted to mention that go with the combination of all these that you want to imprint in the messaging, right? To create that sense of urgency.
And to your point, depending on who is the one doing the follow-up, if it's someone you're training or a junior, making sure they have all the notes logged, making sure they're tracking all the activity, but then also knowing they don't have to have all the answers. They're just making sure that the information is relevant. There is a next step. There is some urgency, qualifying the prospect, and they don't need to have all the answers. They can say, hey, I have a great resource for you. I can hook you up with Greg Hammer in my office. He can answer all your questions and more. what's a date and time that works for you, but not having to have all the answers depending on who's the one doing the follow-up.
Josh, I see you got your virtual hand up, so I wanted to give you a chance to ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. This is great information. I was interested in what you said about spearfishing, Andre, and we've met with a number of prospects after our in-person seminars, and they like really what we have to offer, but they've got a guy that doesn't do what we do, but they like him, or they do it on their own and they're not quite ready to give it up. What cadence do you like directly follow up with these like solid prospects with phone calls? Do you go out, call them once a month? What's the strategy there?
Definitely depends. Short answer is, everyone always says it's a case-by-case situation. So everything's going to be different. But if it's someone that you know is qualified, has continually been engaged in some sort of webinars or conversations or signing up for blogs or email lists or whatever, and they're engaged with you and they're having that conversation, I honestly put it back in their shoes. I lay out the points that we all know of. There are going to be risks when you have different professionals handling different pieces. If you're a do-it-yourselfer and you're doing your investments, your brother-in-law does your tax return, and then you got your father-in-law that's doing your insurance out of a different state. Like there's going to be gaps there. And you lay out the importance of having someone in one place, handling all things, being that holistic person. From there, I put it back on them. Say, here's the value we bring. Here's the next steps we can offer. What do you need from me? If people in your situation typically go A or B route, giving them usually two options works, but I put it back on them. Say, I want to do everything I can to make sure you're not missing anything important. I've spoken with people in your situation that there have been gaps. I would say best case scenario, we just sit down and do a plan comparison, no obligation. We can see whose plan works better. But then from there saying, I'm not here to steal any business or any opportunities. If you already have a relationship, if you have a relationship, that's fine. If you're happy, that makes me happy. I'm just here about the end result. I want to make sure your retirement plan is in the best hands possible. So what do you need from me to make sure you feel comfortable? Clearly, you've been engaged with our stuff, reaching out, having conversations, and you're not ready to make a move. That's fine. What do you need from us then? Is it just having a second opinion? Is it making sure that we stay in touch once a month, once every other year? Would you like us to reach out before tax season to see if any questions pop up? Put it back in their shoes, because there's got to be some accountability. I don't know who said it, but you can't be everything to everybody. And if they're just looking for answers or they just want to feel better, they're constantly going to have that person in the back of their mind to reach out to. It's just staying top of mind and making sure that you know what they know, what your intentions are, and you know what theirs are. So I hope that makes sense. But
yeah, because you asked good questions and made good comments.
I'll add a little bit too, if I can interject. We started really strongly implementing the things we heard at the last collegium, because the question that we ask now in the discovery to the client is, do you want to fix this? Because if you want to fix it, it's going to require you making changes. So the question I have from you before we proceed any further in this relationship or potential relationship is, do you want to fix this? And they have to say yes. Because I'll tell them, I can appreciate the existing relationships you have with your current advisor. I love the fact that my clients are loyal, but I'm going to present things that in all reality, the industry we work in doesn't allow them to probably provide the value that we can legally. They're just going to be restricted. So if you want to fix it, it's going to require making changes. And then the second question I have for them, are you willing to be open to fixing it with me? Right. Because if you're not, I'm not going to move forward in the relationship. It's a waste of time. But you got to get those two yeses, or you're not going to get moving forward if you're stalling in some of those individuals. Because a lot of the stuff that Andrei's talking about will work with those people that are open-minded. But sometimes you got to give people a slap to wake them up.
You made an excellent point. Those questions are crucial on your first right fit call, because you don't want to move them forward in the process if they do not qualify in your book and they're not ready to move forward. Because as we all know, time kills the deal. So those crucial questions, 5 or 6 questions that you have on the qualifying on your RFC should be qualifying questions and saying, hey, are they a fit for me? No. Or am I fit for them? No. Then stop the follow-up right then and there. And you don't need to move forward.
And Des makes a great point. On my fit calls, I'm a little bit more bold because sometimes it's just easier to get there. So you have to have a real strong personality and willing to put that risk out there. But I ask everybody on the fit call, 1, do you want to fix it? And number 2, if we go through this process, are you open to becoming a wealth management client of ours? So we're not saying you are at this point, but are you open to it? Because if you're not, I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to be able to provide the type of value that you're looking for. Now, remember, this is after I've already gone through and understand that we could provide value. And I'm going to say on that phone call, based on our discussion, It's absolutely 100% we could provide value. This is our wheelhouse. This is what we do for clients. I know I'm willing to take a leap of faith and willing to run a couple of appointments with you on that leap because I feel I could bring that much value. But the question I have before I'm willing to take that leap is, are you open to making a change? Are you wanting to make a change? And are you open to becoming a wealth management? Because it's all about the tax management. I know we got a little off topic, Caleb, but I get excited sometimes. Sorry.
Your passion comes through, Hammer, always. It's nice to see. Obviously, you can see why Hammer's also successful on the phone. He has no problem move forward or take a hike, basically. I want to touch on 2 points that kind of overlap, but I think they are germane to what we were just discussing. One is qualifying prospects, because I do think that is a key part of this, is right, making sure you're qualifying prospects up front. And then can you talk a little bit about, either Des or Andrei, about no matter what, you're going to have prospects that stall out. We see it all the time, obviously, on our side with C2P. Some of you, we spent years recruiting. It doesn't always happen overnight. And sometimes no matter what we do, we can't get you to move forward immediately. That doesn't mean you abandon that prospect. So could you guys talk a little bit about our WOW campaign and maybe also how you qualify prospects up front to know, should we enter into a WOW campaign with them, especially over a period of time?
Yeah, I can start with that. So the WOW campaign is, like we talked about beginning of the funnel, like nurturing to your warm leads. The WOW campaign is trying to get your most qualified leads to move to the funnel to become a client. After you know that they're qualified, they answered the right questions, you know that you want to continue engaging with them. And as we know, people are not in the buying cycle 100% of the time. You have to nurture them, that you have to prove your value, that sort of thing. So what our WOW campaign does is really explain to them why they're getting into this process. This is the next step. This is why you took this next step. This is why you explain to us what your value proposition was. And this is how we can provide that value. So as we're moving them through the funnel, so after the right fit call, we would schedule a discovery call. That's our next step in the process. Prior to the discovery call, and each step of this process, we try to incorporate phone call, an email, as well as a mailed piece. That is just an extra added value that we send in each part. And as they move through the funnel, it gets a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more costly, or a better gift as they move through, because obviously they're getting closer to becoming clients. First and foremost, we always confirm each call 24 hours before. This just really, in my experience, have helped eliminate no-shows, so that they can give an opportunity to say, hey, sorry, I'm really busy, I need to reschedule this call. And you're not just sitting there on the call, like waiting for them to show up. So we send a follow-up 24 hours in advance. We also send who they're going to be speaking with, if that's a subject matter expert, some information on, again, this is where you're at in our process and this is why. And then prior to our call, we also send them a book, the bucket plan book usually, or something that they're interested in. So if, as Greg mentioned, what is important to them? Is it tax planning? Is it bucket planning? So getting something that's tailored to them so you can speak about it on the call. After the discovery call, everything goes well, they want to continue moving through the funnel, we do the same thing. The next step is the design call. Prior to our call, we send them another gift. We send them an umbrella with a cheeky little message on it. And then we confirm the call, we have the call, and continue to remind them why they're in this process. You told us, as Greg mentioned, you told us that you want to continue moving forward with us. This is what your pain points are. I'm continuing to remind you why you're doing this. And then as they get into the deep dive, we do a financial analysis. And that is just really a great call to compare. This would benefit you so much if you joined our group, or you switched from your brother-in-law and came to us, or you switch all of your assets over to us. And then in the final stage, when they're really thinking about their decision, we send a recorded video from either the president or someone who has not been involved in this process thus far. Usually it's the president, or recording, or like a lot of the times Matt records a video and says, we're just really excited to meet you. That adds a lot of value as someone is coming on and spending their time and saying how excited they are to get to know them and for them to become a customer. So those are the ways that we sprinkle in people coming through the funnel and really engaging our hot leads to move the client to become a client. Andrei, do you want to add anything to that?
Not on that piece. The only thing I was going to, as far as following up for qualified prospects, I try to do, the only thing I do differently when I know a prospect is qualified, other than, of course, following the WOW campaign, which adds in some like scheduled mailing gifts and personalized email follow-up and so on, is layering in urgency. As I know a lot of people, especially if they're doing the cold calls or booking the right fit call or setting the appointments for the lead advisor, a lot of times they get hung up on everything is urgent all the time, which is, I know it is. Everything is important. They need their financial plan, income, taxes, and retirement. I get it is important at all times, but prospects don't usually think like that. So if every message and email and call that you send is a 911, they will know that and they will tend to tune people out. If every email that they get is sign up here, last chance, very important, a lot of urgency, they'll tend to tune you out. So I'll try to layer in, if I know someone's qualified, hey, here's a couple just thinking about you email. Here's a webinar we held a couple months back. I think we'll get some value out of it. But things that aren't urgent, that way when you do come in 3, 4 weeks, months down the line, they know that they've been getting communication from you and you haven't asked anything from them. Then when you do make an ask, it's actually going to be urgent. But the hard part is you need to make those attempts expecting not to get anything back initially. The second piece to that, once you do have that, finally you've built up enough kind of good intentions, is once you do make that ask, make sure you're getting as much pull as you can from it. They're qualified. You've been talking to them for 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, 2 years even. What's that ask going to be? What we do at C2P is getting them in person. For you, that would be getting them to an annual or biannual quarterly client event or appreciation, getting them in person so you can show your best foot forward. You've already built that good value of keeping them in touch, keeping them in the loop, resources, answering questions, keeping them warm. Now, when you do make your ask, get them in person, have them talk to the leadership team, to the support team, people that they've been following up with, setting, rescheduling meetings, calls, have them meet the team, answer the questions. Once they have you in person, that should be all the buying signals you need. They've been engaged with you for a while. They've made the decision to come in person. Usually they brought your spouse if that's a requirement. So this is an undertaking now. So those would be the 2 things I say. Make sure you know who's qualified, follow up consistently. Not everything can be urgent. And then finally, when it is urgent, try to get them in person as much as possible. So
that was an awesome summary and probably a great way to end this call here today. We are at time somehow. That 30 minutes goes by so fast. Des, Andrei, I just want to say thank you. Hammer, as always, thank you for not being shy and sharing your wisdom and insight. Please join us next Thursday. We will be actually internal again. So we'll have Kirsten and Stoyan. Hard to believe, but September's Life Insurance Awareness Month, and September's just around the corner. So we will be kicking off Life Insurance Awareness Month next Thursday on our coffee break. Again, 11 a.m. Eastern time, same time as always. Everyone have a fantastic week. We look forward to seeing you next week. And please reach out if there's anything we can do to help you. And again, Andrei, Des, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insight today.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit C2PEnterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.